Alright, this is not the newest M4 iPad Pro. This is actually the 3rd generation iPad Pro that was released way back in 2018. And to be honest, from the front, you probably wouldn't have been able to tell that it was. Only when you see the back do you realize how stupid the single camera looks in this Magic Keyboard case, and you realize that this is that iPad Pro. But this was pretty much one of the biggest design shifts in an iPad when it came out. It was the first one to get rid of the home button, actually have even bezels all the way around, and have this sick boxy design that still looks pretty modern even in today's age of tablets. And in this video I want to let you guys know if this tablet is something you should still consider picking up as a way to save money by getting the older model. That's just a classic question in tech. So right now you can only get the 2018 iPad Pro for $400 on the second-hand market for the 11-inch model. And throughout this video, we'll talk about whether or not I think that's a good deal. And first, I want to talk about the build, which really is not that different to like the M4 iPad that got released like 5 months ago. It's thin, not quite as thin as the M4 iPad Pro, but still crazy thin. The screen's very different, but I'll get onto that later. So yeah, it's the same sleek design that was first introduced in this model of iPad Pro, and it's perfectly okay. I also want to talk about battery life because that's an important thing to note when you're considering buying a device that is a couple years old. But to be honest, it's hard for me to gauge how battery life is going to be for each person specifically who wants to buy the 2018 iPad Pro. Some people might be buying it secondhand or refurbished or whatever it is, but you can never pinpoint exactly how battery life is going to be for you. I can tell you my experience, which has been that as expected, battery life has gotten significantly worse since the day it was taken out of the box. On a single charge now, I would estimate I get around 3 to 4 hours of screen on time, which doesn't sound that bad, but the iPad Pro was known for having pretty incredible battery life. Most of the time you could probably count on it lasting you 2 full days, but nowadays I find myself making sure it's on 100% before leaving the house to go and study at the library or something. But this is an aspect that's going to take a pretty big hit. It's 6 years old. And even if you are able to find a completely new one, the battery will have still degraded because that's how batteries work. Naturally, the battery health is going to decline even if it's just sitting in the box. The screen is definitely not an outdated aspect of this device at all. 120Hz LCD. I think the resolution is basically the same, if not very similar to the resolution of the M4 iPad Pro, and I basically have no complaints here. 120Hz is basically a must if you want a good experience with a stylus in terms of input lag and just in general smoothness. It's a very high-end experience despite it being so old. The big thing you're going to be missing out on this model compared to the M4 iPad Pro is the lack of OLED. It's a very noticeable difference, but then again, what did we expect when we're saving a lot of money by getting this one? I guess we can also talk about the cameras, even considering how most people probably aren't going to be using the camera on their tablet that often. At this point, the camera on the 2018 iPad Pro can be considered below average. For a smartphone, obviously, but also for tablets, because recently we've decided to put a lot of effort into the main cameras of tablets for some reason. Not complaining, I'll take it. On here, it's just a little grainy and not very wide, but it's not that big of a deal unless you want to be the guy holding up an iPad in the middle of a concert. But the front camera is still in the center in portrait mode, which is not ideal. Moving it to the landscape position is a very new change, but 6 years too late for this model. I also want to talk a bit about performance. My main workflow with this iPad is literally just taking notes. I don't do any crazy video editing or photo editing. Basically everything I do lies within either Google Chrome or GoodNotes, and I can imagine most people who are looking for a tablet like this are probably in the same boat, and in that case, the A12X Bionic is gonna handle everything perfectly fine. Okay, now it's really cool and all if the tablet is a good value, but it doesn't really mean much if you don't consider how expensive the accessories that you're probably gonna want with this tablet are gonna be. That includes keyboard cases, Apple Pencil, stuff like that, which can actually make this entire setup way more expensive than you would have thought. I'm not saying you definitely need to get the Magic Keyboard case in specific. There are a couple of other cheaper alternatives, but if you do, that's going to be $350 for the bigger 12.9-inch model. And the Apple Pencil is still $130. Like, these are very high quality accessories, which are probably going to be your safest bets when it comes to the iPad, as in I wouldn't recommend getting a third-party stylus for it. And Logitech has some good keyboard cases on the off chance that you don't want your iPad to float while you're typing on it. But yeah, just consider this a warning if you're considering an iPad. Also consider the accessories you're probably going to want alongside it. So in conclusion, should you buy the 2018 iPad Pro near the end of 2024? I mean, ideally, you would be able to buy a tablet that was released a little more recently, like the iPad Air, which would last you for way longer and get you way more software updates down the road. It's not like you have to get the iPad Pro. There are also other Android tablets on the market that are really competitive. OnePlus Pad is a really good option, so is the Tab S8 and Tab S9 from Samsung. Those aren't as expensive, especially when you add on the accessories that you're going to want, like the stylus and the keyboard case. For most people, I would recommend looking at those options instead of getting a second-hand older iPad Pro. But if you really need an iPad specifically because of the ecosystem, then I would first look at the iPad Air, and then if that's still too expensive, only then look at the second-hand options like the 2018 iPad Pro. Hopefully that helped. Let me know if you guys have any other questions in the comments below. Huge thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a like, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.